I'm Philip Pointer with St. Mark Baptist Church.
And I'm Brandon Bernard, one of the teaching pastors at Fellowship Bible Church.
It's easy, I think, for local churches as it is for individuals to kind of get locked into the particular issues of our own world, to major in the minors, and to forget the grander responsibility of the Lord's church, which is to proclaim the gospel for the glory of God. And to do that, it's important that we kind of step outside of ourselves, to step outside of things that we perhaps consider so critical that may not be as critical. How do we best communicate the gospel to those who do not believe? And how do we best demonstrate the reality that Jesus has, according to Ephesians, torn down the wall of separation?
I think what we realize is that the church is made up of people, and the church is meant to be a picture of the gospel. And so when I think about the benefits of our relationship, our church's relationship together, my hope and prayer is that it really is a picture of the gospel to the greater community.
Sure.
Especially, I think, living in the culture we're living in, the tensions that we're facing, and for us to be able to come together, serve together, laugh together, pray together, build friendships together. It says to a watching world, hey, not everybody acts like the rest of culture.
Right.
Like this is what the gospel does. This is what Jesus does in his people when his Spirit comes and begins to unite our hearts together. Obviously, when we came together for one church, when we came together to serve together and to worship together, there's just something that God does in those moments when you're rolling up your sleeves and you're standing side by side with someone who is maybe different than you, comes from a different background than you, or quite frankly has a very similar background to you, just a different skin color.
Exactly.
It's that's kind of, I think, what we discovered even more and more with our churches. But coming together with one church, and I told Philip this, but I've been in ministry for 20 plus years, and by far, one of my most favorite days I've ever had in ministry was linking arms with Philip, teaching the Word together, having the St. Mark choir, our worship leaders all there together, 6,000 or 7,000 people that were all gathered together, and we're worshiping and we're praying together, and I don't know how, that screams to the city, look what the gospel does.
One of the great things that I appreciate about our friendship is that we didn't wait on a crisis,
right,
to try to get together and say, hey, what do we do now?
That's right.
One church wasn't born as a response to crisis.
That's right.
This was born out of genuine friendship.
That's a real good word.
And relationship and just kind of the prompting of the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And so if crisis should happen, there is a relationship established that doesn't need to be built.
Absolutely.
As the church goes forward, the Church of Jesus Christ goes forward and looks forward at our responsibility in the world in which we live. What we know intellectually, we have to implement through intentional engagement and interaction.
I can't overemphasize just building relationships and what that does long term. Because I do think sometimes we can get caught up in doing events, and we, you and I talked about that. But really, what we want to see is just grassroots level friendships that are forming that allow the relationship to kind of go wherever the Spirit leads. I would say this to pastors, to ministers, of just saying, don't force it, but be intentional.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it's kind of that dance of just saying, I'm not trying to force anything, but at the same time, I'm being intentional about what is the Spirit doing in people that I've interacted with. So maybe I met them at something with the Call, or with Bethany, or with Nehemiah Network, or some kind of, or One Voice, Night of Prayer, something where I've been in a situation where I've met somebody, and then what is the Spirit doing with that?
Sure.
And being sensitive to that, and just letting God work in the midst of it, but not forcing it, but certainly being intentional in it. And then watching God work. I think that's huge.
Sure.